Jobe Bellingham was born into a family where football was more than just a sport. It was part of everyday life. From an early age, Jobe was surrounded by football conversations, training sessions, matches, competition, and ambition. His older brother, Jobe Bellingham, was already showing extraordinary potential and would eventually become one of the biggest young football stars in the world. But Jobe's story was never supposed to be a copy of Jude's. He had his own personality, his own style, his own ambitions, and most importantly, his own dream. Growing up with a talented older brother could have been intimidating. Imagine being a young player and constantly hearing comparisons with someone who is already becoming famous around the world. People could easily look at the Bellingham surname and immediately think of Jude. But Jobe had a different mission. He wanted people to say his name because of his football, not because of his brother, not because of his family, not because of the Bellingham surname, because of what he could do on the pitch. That mindset became important as he started developing as a footballer. Jobe understood something very early. Having talent is not enough. Football is one of the most competitive industries in the world. Thousands of young players dream about becoming professionals, but only a small percentage reach the highest levels. Every academy has talented players. Every training session has someone who can score goals. Every generation produces young stars. The difference is often what happens when nobody is watching. The early mornings, the extra training, the difficult sessions, the mistakes, the losses, the moments when confidence disappears, and the decision to continue anyway. For Jobe, development was about more than learning how to control the football. He had to develop physically. He had to understand the tactical side of the game. He had to improve his decision-making. He had to become stronger mentally. And he had to learn how to deal with expectations. As he progressed through youth football, his potential became increasingly visible. But there was another challenge waiting for him: his surname. The name Bellingham already carried weight. By the time Jobe was becoming a serious young prospect, Jude was gaining international attention. Jude's success meant that people were naturally going to compare the brothers. For some young players, that kind of attention could become a distraction. For Jobe, it became another reason to work. He didn't need to become Jude. He needed to become Jobe. That difference is extremely important, because success is not always about becoming the next version of someone else. Sometimes the biggest opportunity is becoming the first version of yourself. Jobe's early career began with Birmingham City, the same club where Jude had developed before making his own major move. That connection made the story even more interesting. The Bellingham family name was already familiar at the club, but Jobe still had to earn his place. Youth football can be unforgiving. Coaches are constantly evaluating players. One week you can feel like the future is yours. The next week you can be sitting on the bench, questioning everything. A young player has to learn how to handle both moments. Praise can be dangerous if it makes you believe you have already made it. Criticism can be dangerous if it makes you believe you never will. Jobe had to find the balance: stay confident, but stay hungry. Believe in yourself, but keep improving. Dream about the biggest stages, but focus on the next training session. That mentality would become one of the most important parts of his development. As Jobe moved closer to senior football, the stakes became higher. Youth football is one thing, professional football is completely different. The players are stronger. The speed is faster, the pressure is greater, mistakes can immediately affect the result. And every performance can influence how clubs, coaches, fans and scouts view your future. This is where a young player as potential starts becoming an economic asset. Football is not only about goals and assists. A talented young player represents future value. If a club believes a player can become a star, that player can become extremely valuable. Contracts become larger, transfer interest increases, sponsors start paying attention, media coverage grows, and the player as personal brand begins to develop. But Jobe still had to earn every step. Nothing was guaranteed. His family background could give him exposure, but it could not play the matches for him. His brother could give him advice, but he could not make his decisions. His surname could attract attention, but it could not score a goal. Jobe had to do that himself, and that is where the real story begins. Instead of trying to escape the comparison with Jude, Jobe could use it as motivation. Every comparison became another reminder that he needed to keep improving. Every opportunity became a test. Every match became another chance to build his reputation. Slowly, the idea of Jobe Bellingham becoming his own football identity started to become real. The goal was no longer simply to be a talented young player. The goal was to become a professional, then a starter, then a leader, then, potentially, a star. And with every step, his potential earning power could grow as well. But money was never the first part of the equation. The first part was value. Create value, improve your skills, perform consistently, build trust, build a reputation, then opportunities can follow. This is a lesson that goes far beyond football. In business, people often want the money before creating the value. They want the success before doing the work. They want the audience before creating something worth watching. They want the results without going through the difficult years. Jobe's journey represents the opposite approach. First comes the work, then comes the opportunity, then comes the responsibility, and eventually the financial rewards can follow. His story was still only beginning. At this stage, there were no guarantees that he would reach the highest level. There were no promises of becoming a global superstar. There was only potential, and potential is not success. Potential has to be converted into performance. That meant Jobe had to keep working. He had to keep learning. He had to keep competing. And he had to build something that belonged entirely to him. Because one day, the question would no longer be, who is Jobe Bellingham's brother? The question would become, who is Jobe Bellingham? And that was the name he wanted the football world to remember. His journey was no longer about following someone else's path. It was about creating his own. And the first step toward that future was simple: work hard, stay focused, build your value, create your own name. After developing through the youth system and taking his first steps into senior football, Jobe Bellingham reached an important moment in his career. Talent was no longer enough. He needed a place where he could play, make mistakes, learn from them, and prove that he belonged at the professional level. That opportunity came with Sunderland. For a young footballer, moving to a new club can completely change the direction of a career. Suddenly, everything becomes more serious. The training sessions become more intense, the opponents become stronger, the expectations become higher, and every appearance can influence how people see your future. For Jobe, Sunderland became much more than another club. It became a platform, a place where he could begin turning potential into real professional experience. Instead of simply being known as a talented academy player, he now had the opportunity to compete against experienced professionals. That experience was priceless. Every minute on the pitch taught him something. Every difficult match showed him where he needed to improve. Every mistake became a lesson. Every good performance increased his confidence. And every successful performance made more people pay attention. This is how careers are built, not in one match, not in one week, but through hundreds of small improvements. Jobe had to learn how to deal with the physical demands of senior football. Young players often discover that professional football is much faster than academy football. There is less time to think, less space to make decisions, and much more pressure when you lose possession. A player can have incredible technical ability, but if he cannot handle the intensity of professional football, talent alone will not be enough. Jobe had to adapt. He had to become stronger. He had to become more intelligent with the ball. He had to understand when to attack and when to control the game. He had to learn how to deal with pressure, and he had to become comfortable playing in front of thousands of people. This was the beginning of a different kind of development. At Birmingham, he had been developing as a young prospect. At Sunderland, he was beginning to develop as a professional. That difference mattered because professional football is not only about what you can do, it is about what you can do consistently. One great performance can create excitement. 10 strong performances can create belief. An entire season of development can change a player's career. And Jobe was starting to build that consistency. The more he played, the more comfortable he became. The more comfortable he became, the more responsibility he could take. And the more responsibility he took, the more valuable he became. This is where football begins to connect directly with business. A football player is, in many ways, a professional asset. Clubs invest money into players because they believe those players can create value. That value can come from performances, it can come from winning matches, it can come from helping a team achieve promotion, it can come from attracting fans. And, for exceptional young players, it can eventually come from a major transfer. That means development has a financial side. A young player who improves rapidly can become much more valuable than he was a year earlier. But there is a catch. Nobody can simply decide that they are valuable. The market decides, performances decide, clubs decide, results decide, and most importantly, consistency decides. Jobe's performances at Sunderland helped create that growing interest. More people started watching him, more scouts could evaluate him, more clubs could consider his potential, more fans started recognizing his name. And his personal brand began to grow. But there was something else happening at the same time. Jobe was becoming more independent. He was no longer just a young player from Birmingham. He was becoming a professional footballer with his own career. That distinction mattered enormously. There can be achievement bonuses, there can be sponsorship agreements, there can be advertising, there can be social media partnerships, there can be merchandise, and eventually, there can be major personal brand opportunities. But none of these things are guaranteed. They have to be earned. A company does not pay a young athlete hundreds of thousands of pounds simply because he is young. A sponsor wants attention. A sponsor wants credibility. A sponsor wants an audience. A sponsor wants association with success. So the footballer's job is not only to perform on the pitch, he is also building a personal brand. And Jobe has something extremely valuable in that area, the Bellingham name. But the name alone is not enough. His challenge is to make people recognize Jobe Bellingham, not simply Jude's younger brother. That distinction could become extremely important financially. If Jobe becomes a major football star in his own right, his commercial value could become much larger. Imagine the difference between being a promising 20-year-old midfielder and being an established international star. The first might attract smaller opportunities. The second could attract major global brands. The difference can be millions of pounds over an entire career. But there is another important lesson here. Jobe did not create his financial value overnight. It was built over years. Training session after training session, match after match, season after season. That is how wealth is often created in professional sports. Not through one lucky moment, through accumulated value. A player improves by one, then another. Those improvements eventually become visible. The player becomes more reliable, more experienced, more important, and more expensive. This is exactly the same principle that exists in business. A company can start with one customer, then 10, then 100, then 1,000. The value grows because the underlying product becomes better and more people want it. A footballer works in a similar way. At first, there may be potential, then performance, then recognition, then demand, then financial value. Jobe's transfer to Dortmund was one of the clearest financial milestones of his young career. Sunderland received a major fee, Dortmund acquired a highly rated young midfielder, and Jobe entered a new stage of his career. But the most interesting part is what could happen next. Because 27 million may not be the end of his value. It could be the beginning. If Jobe develops into the player Dortmund believes he can become, his future market value could potentially become much higher. Of course, nobody can guarantee a future transfer price. Football is unpredictable. A player can become a superstar. A player can struggle. Injuries can change careers. Form can disappear. Competition can become stronger. That is why clubs are not only buying what a player is today, they are buying what they believe he could become tomorrow. And Dortmund's decision to give Jobe a contract until 2030 shows the club is thinking long-term. Borussia Dortmund, the financial lesson is simple. Your current value is based on what you have already achieved. Your future value is based on what people believe you can achieve next. Jobe had already created enough value to generate a transfer worth tens of millions. Now he has to create even more performances, more experience, more goals, more influence, more consistency, more responsibility, and potentially more financial value. But behind every number is something people often forget: work. Before the 27 million transfer came thousands of hours of training. Before the professional contract came years of development. Before the sponsorship opportunities came football performances. Before the attention came discipline. And before the money came sacrifice. That is why Jobe Bellingham's story is not simply about a footballer making money. It is about understanding how money is created. Create something valuable, improve it, prove that it works, build trust, increase demand, and then the financial rewards can follow. Jobe is still young. His career is still developing. His biggest achievements may still be ahead of him. But one thing has already been proven. A young player who started by trying to create his own identity eventually became valuable enough to command a transfer package worth more than 30 million when potential add-ons are included. And that is where the story becomes even more interesting. Because the next question is no longer, how did Jobe become valuable? The next question is, how much more valuable can he become? For a young footballer, moving to Dortmund is not simply changing clubs. It means entering a completely different environment, a different country, a different football culture, a different level of pressure, and a much bigger international stage. Dortmund is one of Europe's most famous clubs for developing young talent. The club has a long history of giving opportunities to young players and turning potential into elite-level footballers. For Jobe, that made the move especially important. He was no longer simply a promising teenager playing senior football in England. He had become a player worth more than 27 million upfront, with reported add-ons that could take the total package to around 31 million. That price tag immediately changed the conversation around him. When a club invests that kind of money in a young player, expectations naturally become higher. People want to know why the club paid so much. They want to see what the player can become. And every match becomes part of the answer. This is one of the most difficult parts of becoming a highly valued athlete. The higher your value becomes, the more people expect from you. When you are an academy player, a mistake can be seen as part of development. When a club pays tens of millions for you, the same mistake can become a headline. The pressure changes, the spotlight becomes brighter, and the margin for error becomes smaller. For Jobe, this was the next test. Could he take everything he had learned in England and perform at a higher level in Germany? Could he adapt to a new tactical system? Could he handle stronger opponents? Could he deal with the pressure of playing for one of Europe's biggest clubs? And could he build an identity that belonged entirely to him? Those questions would follow him into Dortmund, but there was also a major opportunity. Dortmund could give Jobe something incredibly valuable: global exposure. The Bundesliga is watched around the world. Dortmund has millions of supporters internationally. The club regularly plays in European competitions, and its young stars often become global names. That creates opportunities that go far beyond football. A player at a major European club can become more attractive to sportswear companies, more attractive to advertisers, more attractive to sponsors, more attractive to media companies, and more valuable on social media. This is where football and personal branding begin to overlap. A young player is not only building a football career, he is also building a public identity. And Jobe has a particularly interesting challenge. His surname is already globally recognized because of Jobe Bellingham. That creates attention, but attention is not the same as identity. Jobe needs to turn attention into recognition for himself. He wants fans to know his style, his personality, his football, his achievements, his story. Because eventually, the strongest personal brands are built when people no longer need a comparison. They simply know your name. That is the opportunity Dortmund provides. Imagine the difference between being known as a talented young player in England and being recognized across Europe as a Dortmund midfielder. The potential audience becomes much larger, and with a larger audience comes greater commercial potential. But there is another side to this. A bigger audience also means more criticism. Every mistake can be analyzed. Every poor performance can be discussed. Every transfer fee can be mentioned. Every comparison with Jobe can return. This is the price of visibility. The more successful you become, the more people watch you. And the more people watch you, the more opinions you will receive. Some will support you, some will criticize you, some will compare you to other players. Some will question whether you were worth the money. A professional athlete has to learn how to separate useful criticism from unnecessary noise. That mental strength can become just as important as physical ability. Jobe Bellingham, our story is still far from finished. At a young age, he has already experienced something that most aspiring footballers will never experience. He has played professional football. He has taken responsibility on the pitch. He has attracted international attention, and he has completed a transfer worth around 27 million upfront, with reported bonuses potentially taking the package to approximately 31 million. But the biggest part of his story may not be about the money. It may be about his name. For years, the Bellingham surname has been associated with Jude. Jude became a global superstar. He moved to Borussia Dortmund. He became one of the most valuable young players in world football. Then came Real Madrid, and with success came enormous attention. For Jobe, this created an unusual situation. He had the advantage of being born into a football family. He had someone close to him who understood the pressure of elite football. But at the same time, he had to deal with comparisons that most young players never experience. People could always ask, is Jobe going to be as good as Jude? But that is the wrong question. The better question is, how good can Jobe Bellingham become? Because legacy is not about copying someone else. Legacy is about creating something that survives because it belongs to you. Jobe does not need to become another Jude. He needs to become the best version of Jobe. That is where the business side of his story becomes especially interesting. A footballer's career can become a personal brand. The strongest brands are not built simply because someone is famous. They are built through consistency. People know who you are. They know what you represent. They recognize your achievements. They remember your story, and they trust your name. Jobe is still at the beginning of that process. His professional career is developing. His audience is growing. His international exposure is increasing, and his future earning potential could grow alongside his football career. But there is a major difference between money and legacy. Money can measure financial success. Legacy measures impact. A player can earn millions and still be forgotten. Another player can become remembered for decades because of what he achieved, how he played, and what he represented. Jobe has the opportunity to build both, but it will take time. His move to Borussia Dortmund gives him a major platform. The club has a worldwide audience. European football provides enormous exposure, and success at Dortmund could potentially increase his market value even further. If Jobe develops into an elite player, the 27 million initial transfer fee could eventually look like only the beginning of his financial journey. His salary could increase with future contracts. Performance bonuses could become more significant. Commercial partnerships could become more valuable, and if he becomes an international star, his personal brand could expand beyond football. But again, none of this is guaranteed. Football careers can change quickly. That is why the most valuable investment Jobe can make is still the same one he made when he was young. Invest in himself. Training, recovery, fitness, football intelligence, mental strength, discipline, consistency. These are the assets that can create everything else. And that is one of the most powerful lessons in his story. People often see the final number. They see a 27 million transfer. They see the famous club. They see the attention. They see the lifestyle. But they do not see every early morning. They do not see every difficult training session. They do not see every mistake. They do not see the moments of doubt. They do not see the years of development that came before the money. Success often looks sudden from the outside, but from the inside, it is usually built slowly. Jobe's journey demonstrates that principle. First came the dream, then the training, then the opportunity, then the performances, then the value, then the transfer, and now comes the hardest part, proving that he belongs at the highest level. The next few years could define an important part of his career. If he continues developing, he could become one of the most recognizable young midfielders in Europe. If he becomes a consistent top-level player, his value could rise dramatically. And if he eventually becomes an international star, his financial and commercial opportunities could become even greater. But the ultimate goal should not simply be a bigger number. The ultimate goal is to build a career that people respect, to become a player whose achievements cannot be explained by his surname, to become someone whose story inspires younger footballers, to become a professional who earned his position, That is what makes a legacy. Imagine a young footballer years from now watching Jobe play and thinking, if he could build his own path, maybe I can build mine too. That is real impact. Because success becomes more powerful when it inspires other people. Jobe's story can teach young athletes that comparison does not have to become a weakness. It can become motivation. Being born into a successful family does not guarantee success. Having a famous brother does not guarantee success. Having talent does not guarantee success. Having opportunities does not guarantee success. You still have to perform. You still have to work. You still have to prove yourself. And that is why Jobe's journey is bigger than football. It is a story about identity. It is a story about pressure. It is a story about money. It is a story about opportunity. But most importantly, it is a story about building something that belongs to you. Jobe Bellingham has already created the first chapters. From a young footballer in England to professional football to Sunderland to a transfer worth more than 27 million upfront to Borussia Dortmund, each step increased the pressure. But each step also increased the opportunity. And now he has a new challenge. Not to become Jobe Bellingham, not to live inside someone else's shadow, not to chase someone else's achievements, but to create his own story. Because one day, people may stop introducing him as Jobe Bellingham's younger brother. They may simply say, Jobe Bellingham, and that name may be enough. The lesson from his journey is simple. Your background can give you an opportunity, but only your work can turn that opportunity into success. Create value, stay disciplined, keep improving, do not rush the process, do not let comparisons define you, and never confuse potential with achievement. Jobe's story is still being written. The money may grow, the trophies may come, the contracts may become bigger. The audience may become global, but the most important investment remains the same, building a name that belongs to you. And perhaps that will become Jobe Bellingham's greatest legacy. Not being the next Jobe, not being the most expensive, not being the richest, but being remembered as Jobe Bellingham, a footballer who created his own path.